Broadcasting from the commodity capital of the world, Zurich, Switzerland, this is Insider's Guide to Energy.
Insider's Guide to Energy, ETRM mini-series, brought to you by Fidectis, where post-trading matters, and Falls an independent management and consulting boutique, creating impacts for clients and markets.
Welcome to Insider's Guide to Energy Educational Series. This ETRM educational series will take you through the ETRM vendors and the ecosystems to help you decide what's best for your environment. Martin Hiller and myself, Chris Sass, will host these sessions. Each session will be consistent so you can listen to all our episodes and compare vendors for yourself. Martin, welcome to the program.
Hi Chris. Hi Simon.
Today's guest we have with us is from CTRM Cubed, Simon Piercy. Simon, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
So the way this is going to work for our audience and for you as well is we are going to ask you a number of questions about the industry, what's happening in ETRM today, about your solution, and then we're going to ask some very specific questions, finally ending up in a speed round of 10 questions, which we'll ask all the vendors in the industry so that our audience can judge for themselves and evaluate each system. So to start with, why don't we start broad, Simon? And first, tell us about your company's name, and a little bit of history on your company before we go into the show.
Yeah, so just to give you a bit of background about myself. So I guess I'm a technologist at heart. I graduated in computer science many years ago. Kind of ended up a little bit by accident in the energy sector, as a lot of people do end up. I don't think it's anything that anybody plans to do. But around about 25 years ago now, I joined one of the bigger energy companies in the UK, primarily working as a technologist. Actually started off as a computer programmer all those years ago, and kind of from that fell into energy. And then very quickly after that, I fell into trading. I was involved in putting in some of the very early trading systems, and I did that for about 10 years. And at the end of that 10 years, I kind of said to myself, well, you know what, we've been working with these systems for a number of years, and you always think you can do a better job yourself. So somewhat bravely, I decided that I was going to set up my own technology company to develop software and systems for this sector. I ended up running that company for 10 years, and as much fun as it was, I came to a natural conclusion there, and I decided that having had the fun of doing that first time round, I would actually go ahead and have another go at it. So I kind of guess around about 4 years ago now, myself and some industry colleagues, we set up CTRM Cubed. And the real kind of driver behind it, as I say, I'm a technologist, was to try and fix some of the problems that kind of beset the ETRM software market, and really just come up with primarily technology solutions to that. We've also had the benefit of, over the years, those technologies, the kind of things like cloud technologies and better ways of doing software come to the fore. So really, the company is about solving issues in the commodity trading sector. That's principally what we're all about.
So I appreciate the introduction. It's great to hear your story. I've known you for a little while, but I hadn't known your full background. One of the things that I think of when I think of you is you get to do a do-over, right? So you actually worked in ETRM in the past. You've worked in software and understand it. And so maybe that leads to an opening, for the show is a little bit of So you said you're solving ETRM problems. What's wrong with ETRM today, or is there anything wrong with ETRM today? Why do we need people to start companies up to change things?
Yes, exactly. So the answer is there's an awful lot of things that are wrong with ETRM today. You know, and I guess like a lot of these things, it depends on what perspective that you come from. But ultimately, these platforms are trying to solve an awful lot of problems themselves. And one of the ramifications of that is that you end up with a sector that has become very complex. The nature of these types of systems is that you're trying to solve problems for a wide range of different companies, but ultimately you ideally just want one system to be able to do that. And what tends to happen over time is you bob more and more things into these platforms, into these systems, and then you have all the problems that come with that. So we tend to kind of refer to kind of incumbent systems as kind of monolithic, if you like. So these have sprouted from systems that may have been evolved from the 1990s or even earlier that have over the years just been added on and added on. You've got a variety of turnover of staff. You've got a variety of different implementations. The sector is trying to deliver solutions into a number of different types of organizations. So you end up with this significant complexity, and as a result of that, you end up with systems that are very expensive, very difficult to maintain. They're difficult to procure. And coupled with that, you also have the whole implementation process of these systems. And often, you are running into a number of, months, years, multi-year type projects just to try and implement a single ETRM system. Over and above that, you also have other issues around things like scalability, performance, reliability, things like integration with other systems and other platforms. And when you add all those things together, you can quickly see how you've got quite a complex problem on your hands.
Yeah, I can quickly subscribe to that. I would definitely say, having went to some integration projects for ETM systems, Simon, I can definitely see that as well. So lengthy implementation and integration projects, rising up the costs as well that you don't expect upfront. But let me ask you, because that's very interesting. So what is your approach and your solution to overcome that lengthy integration projects of integrating a system that has grown and grown over past years?
Yeah, so I guess that's ultimately where our TradeCube platform comes in. So really, as a starting point for that big lump of different problems, we have really tried to look at all of those things and come up with solutions to how you fix those problems. So one of the areas that we looked at really right from the get-go with TradeCube was this concept of making it fully cloud and multi-tenanted SaaS. So multi-tenanted SaaS really is kind of where you want to get to as a platform vendor, because in effect, what that allows you to do is it allows you to have a single operational system that a number of different parties can connect to. And once you have that, some of the issues around the more complex side of the business tend to kind of evaporate a little bit. So for example, alongside providing the solution, we also provide some very rapid onboarding. So we have a set of libraries that have standardized industry data, if you like, standardized products and commodities that we just supply as part of a data pack alongside the alongside the implementation. So what that means is, and I'm sure anybody that's been through ETRM implementation knows, a lot of the work involved is really just doing a lot of kind of mundane setup type stuff to actually get up and running. So the starting point of what we looked to do with the platform was to just try and tick off each of those particular issues, and using the technology and using the platforms like Microsoft Azure, just allow us to be able to do that bit more quickly and efficiently, and ultimately more reliably and cheaper.
All right, so I hear you talking about the technology. I hear all the right buzzwords. I hear about cloud. I hear about getting there. But let's talk a little bit about the problem statement of the business problem you solve. Right. So what is the business? What has changed substantially? Is it just a technology problem that the systems have gotten bloated over the years, or are the business problems changing along the way?
Yeah. So I think, as I said earlier, the actual environment that you're delivered into is a very broad church. So you have the smallest companies through the biggest companies. You have people with physical assets, people that have virtual assets, people that are primarily trading, people that are primarily hedging. So you have all those different complexities all rolled into one. So ultimately, from if you like, a functional side, what we've tried to focus on is really the core trading capability. So the ability to be able to very quickly set up your trading portfolio, your books, be able to add your trades, be able to get your various kind of metrics, analyze your metrics. And then really, over and above that, the other key thing is to be able to integrate those into what we're calling the ecosystem. And I guess we'll talk a little bit about that later on as well.
Yes, definitely. But I have a very interesting question, at least in the context of business models. I mean, Chris, you mentioned it, and Simon, you talked a bit about it, so that the problem statement of the client is changing, driven by the market. So what I can clearly see, and I think everybody sees that, is renewables is more and more the predominant source of energy throughout Europe, but also globally. So in that context, how important is the energy transition for your clients, and what do you specifically offer to manage this transition?
Yeah, so renewables is definitely an interesting sector. I think from our clients' perspective, it matters. It matters slightly less because ultimately the energy you're trading is that aspect of it, that key component of it, kind of remains unchanged. I think some of the difficulties that come with that is because you have things like the sort of intermittency and if I step back a little bit and think about my where I started my career in the energy sector, we had very big gas and coal-fired power stations, and they were easy. They were from a trading perspective, they were very easy to run and operate because you could you could pretty much control the output. You could pretty much forecast exactly how they were going to work. Sort of maybe breakdowns excluded. If you now look at a renewable sector, you've got a lot more push to shorter-term trading. That basically increases the actual number of trades that you're doing. Because if you own a solar farm and then all of a sudden it's cloudy for an hour, then your forecast for that output could be significantly different. Therefore, you might have to do a higher volume of spot trading compared to how you might have operated those particular, how you might have operated your portfolio in the past, for example.
Yeah.
So
I'm definitely subscribing to that. I can see that whole short-term trading organizations are restructured and built from scratch from you, of course, away from Excel or any monolith system. in that context, what I see is very important to be able to manage this volatile output is to have a real-time position management tool or environment. So does your solution offer that, so that any time a trader can see what is my real-time position and act quickly to the market?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's one of the key things that we've also kind of considered. So in the big lump of problems that kind of outlined earlier on, the kind of whole performance and scalability has definitely been an issue in the past, and we've tackled that. And again, it's a technology answer, but cloud gives you that. Cloud gives you the ability to be able to, for example, spin up additional virtual servers to be able to cope with an increased amount of transactional data. So once you've done that, then it becomes more straightforward to then be able to provide that faster response. And coming to your point specifically, our portfolio analysis recalculates your trading information the second that you actually do the trade. So we've come a long way from the kind of batch updates. For a long time, a lot of the trading updates were kind of overnight, and then you looked at your position report the next day. That's come down from hours to minutes, and we're working on reducing that down from minutes to seconds to microseconds.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, performance and scalability is definitely a key in that environment. But let me make maybe one step back to the renewables and in general the energy transition. I think if you look at the market, especially the market prices for CO2 especially, which is going through the roof now, this exposure and managing CO2 exposure is, in my opinion, more and more important in the next years, not just for the energy producing industry, but also for industrials who are sometimes also using ETRM or CTRM solutions. So how do you see this development, and is your system capable to manage CO2 exposure and inventory and all that comes with it?
So we actually designed the system to be multi-commodity. So the answer is yes, but sort of. So we primarily at the moment kind of dealing with kind of UK, sorry, not so much UK power, but certainly power and gas within the European sector. We can do carbon as well. Your little kind of addition to the question, which said, and all the bits around it. Well, again, that's probably less ours and more the kind of ecosystem partners again. So, we've designed the platform to be able to trade the various commodities. But if you want to do slightly more exotic things like, ship that information off to kind of various, say, regulatory parties or that sort of thing, then that's where we kind of lean on the ecosystem partners to do that. And that gives the flexibility to the buyers to be able to say, well, okay, fine. If I need that, I can take it. If I don't need it, then I'm saving some money.
Okay, very, very interesting. And in that context, I think CO2 is not the only exposure or new development in the energy transition that keeps client going and moving forward. Also PPAs and what comes with it, GOOs or ROCs in UK are new, let's say, new contract types that needs to be managed at the end as well in an ETRM system and CTRM systems. So how is your view on that? How do you see, or do you see some of your clients struggling with that, or?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's certainly an interesting time to be doing the kind of mini series because, I guess if you'd have asked the same questions about 2 months ago, then most people would have said, well, it's all ticking along quite nicely. We're not unduly kind of worried about these things. And then, of course, in the moment, everything's going crazy, and the volatility is so high. But ultimately, I'll come back to the same point. If you have a good quality ETRM system and you have the ability to be able to track the trades and manage the portfolios and have the flexibility to be able to react quickly to new challenges that come along, then you should be perfectly okay. Where you might struggle is if your system's a little bit kind of rigid, if you like, and if you've operated the same processes for an awful long time and you don't have the flexibility that maybe the cloud and the kind of API integrations offer you, it might be a little bit more of a struggle. You could be kind of back to spreadsheets and things like that, which is not really where you want to be. So yeah, absolutely. There's continual change within the sector, and the vendors have to be they have to be pretty agile to be able to cope with the challenges that can sometimes appear at relatively short notice.
So I appreciate it. I'm hearing you talking about APIs. I'm hearing you talking about connectivity. But what you said before, which I'd like you to talk a bit more, is about, you said if you have the right ecosystem. So describe your ecosystem, or how you either envision it being or how it is today. Maybe that would be helpful.
Yeah. So I think you've really got two ways that you can solve the ETRM problem. You can either have one system that tries to do absolutely everything, and there are systems out there that do that, and that's kind of fine. But those tend to be back into the the complex monolith, difficult to implement. Or you can take a slightly different view, and my observation of the way the industry's kind of moved over the last 10 years is that there's very, very good third-party vendors out there that are specializing in specific areas that are not maybe traditionally kind of core ETRM, but are very important to the overall ecosystem. So the question then becomes, as an ETRM vendor, do you want to try and have the great big system that does absolutely everything? Or, in our case, is it slightly better to say, well, actually, what we'll do is we'll do our core components and we'll do them very well. But what we'll also do is we'll open those up to the world so that the ability to get information in and out of the platforms suddenly becomes a lot easier. And once you're in that space, then what you can then do is you can then get like-minded, let's call them peripheral organizations or third parties that are very good at, say, for example, operations or back office or regulation, or the swathe of things that you need to do, and just have good, reliable interfaces to those other systems so that you then get a kind of better sum of parts. You're not reliant on a single vendor. You're not reliant on a single vendor being expert at everything. And the nice thing about it is that, as I say, you can pick and choose the bits that you want to use. And the analogy I use is it's a little bit like an app store on your phone, which we've all got used to again over the last 10 years. You buy a phone and it does the phone calls and it does the text messages, but maybe you want it to also be able to do GPS tracking or a weather application or something like that. And you don't necessarily go to the phone vendor to get all that stuff. You go to the phone vendor for the main application, then you go to the app store for the other good quality add-ons that work in harmony with the phone. So I would liken it to that. And I think overall the quality of the offering is improved.
That sounds very interesting. You mentioned a great buzzword here, so app stores. As I understand, you provide the basic applications to your clients and they can pick whether they want to go with them or not and pick single ones only or the whole offer. But how is it about developing new applications for your clients? Can they, in a rather easy and structured way, develop new applications or services and integrate them well in the existing core apps that might come from you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually, probably uniquely within the sector, we actually have got a number of our interfaces that we provide the source code for on GitHub. So if anybody wants to get started with writing their own applications, then they can do that. They can take the source code that we've got as an example for maybe a different interface, and then they can just take that and use that to write their own similar interface. So it's innovations like that that we're kind of bringing to the fore that, ultimately just make the platform more flexible. And of course, people always want to do their own stuff, right? And with the API and the code samples and it just all being very standardized, yeah, absolutely. You can definitely write your own stuff to go alongside the standardized components.
So excited about the APIs, excited that you can customize and write your own code. I guess one of the things that I think would be a challenge, you talked in your introduction about perhaps some monolithic legacy software out there. Platforms are a bit hard. Now, unless you're a brand new trader coming into the industry, this isn't greenfield. So what is the migration strategy for someone that has one of these monolithic platforms to go to yours, or are those not your target customers?
I think right now that's not really our target customers. I think there's a very long tail of organizations that probably have no systems at all, or they're just setting up, or they have some spreadsheets, or they have systems that they're not very happy with. And we're quite realistic about that. Part of our offering is not the big 3-year project to do a migration. Really, a lot of the a lot of our focus is just getting the fairly poorly served smaller clients off and running. With that said, if there's organizations out there that like the sound of the kind of SaaS and cloud solution, then yeah, for sure we'd have a conversation with them. And indeed, we sort of have two primary offerings. We have an enterprise platform just for that exactly that type of customer. But I think to start with, the multi-tenanted route where you can just sign up and use the platform is the route to go. So we'll get there maybe in a few years, but right now we're happy tackling the smaller guys.
Okay, talking about the smaller guys, Simon, that's quite interesting. What I can see is that they usually don't have resources and also the skills to maintain and support such a solution. So what do you offer in that context? Is your solution fully hosted, fully supported, and fully maintained if the client wants that?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a client perspective, you don't actually need to particularly worry about any kind of infrastructure, any databases. You can go to our website and just sign up, and then everything is kind of managed through the platform. We've also got some innovations around things like environment management. We can, from our platform, schedule activities such as backups and other kind of maintenance tasks, which you can basically do, with one click on the platform, rather than needing an IT team and the ability and having specialist people there just to support the application. For sure, you're going to need some kind of power users that kind of understand what they're doing. But yeah, you need zero kind of IT expertise just to get started. and a little sprinkling of IT expertise if you do need to do, for example, some interfaces or some custom reports or that sort of thing.
So it sounds like you've thought through your market space very well. You're a relatively young company. So where are you in the life of your company today? What's real? What's alpha? What's beta? Where are you?
Well, it is very early. You're absolutely right. We've not been around very long. We've been pretty busy, kind of doing two things really side by side. So one is developing the functional stuff, so the bits and pieces that people expect to see with an ETRM system. The other thing that's kind of like a bit more hidden is that we've also done a lot of work on the infrastructure in the environment and just things like improving our kind of builds and our releases. We sort of operate a DevOps platform. So the net result of that is that for example, we can do upgrades much simpler. We can do releases much simpler. So we've been focusing quite a lot on that side of things. In terms of what's alpha, what's beta, well, the great thing about the cloud is that it's basically just continual improvement. So how we tend to work is that we have the stuff that's out there is out there, and that stuff works, and then customers come to us and they want different things, and we have ideas about things we want to add, and then over time we just basically kind of roll them out. So there isn't quite the same kind of concept with cloud, and you're on this version and somebody else is on that version. Everybody's on the same version. It has to work like that. So a lot of what we're doing is just an awful lot of checking and testing to make sure everything all works, which you'd expect, and then gradually releasing the kind of upgrades in little packages. And from a user perspective, they log on one day and they see that we've added this feature or this menu or this little bit that makes things a little bit better. So it's really is a case of just continual improvement.
So I understand the agile development and bringing things in from time to time. I guess, what are the lessons learned from having done this? So you've rolled out some customers at this point. You're not brand new. Obviously, architecturally, we understand the software, we understand the process, and having the continual rollout. What have you learned specific to the energy traders in doing this? Are there challenges there that they should, or gotchas with this environment, that kind of setup?
Well, it's not going to be for everybody. I think it was interesting, actually. I was talking to an industry colleague, and they were saying that they had done an awful lot of work in terms of reducing the number of different builds out that they had for their clients. So they were, so on the one side of the fence, you've got, the one build per client sort of thing, and that's always an absolutely kind of terrible situation. The other risk that you also run in this sector is that you get, customer-specific bolt-ons, if you like. So, fairly grotty case statements or switch statements or something like that says, if it's customer X, do this, and customer Y, do that. Those things are always an absolute disaster in the long term. So we've done our level best to try and avoid that.
So how did you get the industry not to do that? Because in my experience with energy traders, everybody's special, and the larger they are, the more special they get. So how are you re-educating?
Well, I think that the answer is that we just don't have those larger clients, Okay. So that's it. I mean, that's the that's maybe one of the benefits of operating on the side of the market that we do. That people are just so happy that they can get like a system up and running, and it hasn't cost them $500,000 that you can get away with a little bit more. So I mean, if you have the kind of whales, if you like, that come along from time to time, you just have to make sure you just don't get eaten up by them. And I think that's definitely a lesson of history that as a software vendor, you've just got to try and avoid. So yeah, absolutely, there's a lot of pitfalls there, but I think just having the courage of conviction of mind to just not get yourself too dazzled by big clients or big contracts that you end up just creating a massive problem for yourself somewhere else down the line.
So one other question as we kind of get towards the tail end of this section of the show is, you talked about the problem statement. I didn't hear you talk about reporting or reports or visualization of data. Is that something that's important with your architecture? Is that something that works in the old world? Is that something the newer architectures do better? What do you think there?
Yeah, so two different things there. So I'd separate them out. So visualizations, yeah, absolutely, we do that. We call the platform TradeCube because on the one hand you have trading, and on the other side you have kind of like a cube analytics capability. So on the analytics side, we can do a whole manner of slice and dice, and you can you can kind of graph that, chart that. We've got a whole package of different ways that you can do that. So that's absolutely provided. And the other thing you mentioned was reports, and again, this is just learning the hard way over the years, right? You can never write a standard set of reports that pleases anybody. So this time around, we just didn't bother trying. What we actually have is we've developed some basically standard web services. So we've got a number of very specific endpoints that just basically give people the numbers that they want. So you can use the API, you can pass in a few parameters, and then it basically gives you the metrics that you want, just the raw numbers. And then you can use that to put it into your reporting platform of choice, or put it in your own data warehouse, or really do whatever you choose to do with it. We have kind of in the process of some Grafana integration. So Grafana is pretty cool for charting. And again, that just relies on you having some API that spits out numbers in the right type of format. So once you have those core components in place, a lot of the reporting answer just kind of drops out. But and we even support writing your own reports in our own little report engine, should you really want to. But the minute anybody asks for that sort of stuff, usually the question is, well, do you really want that, or do you just want that because you've always had that report for the last 20 years? And the answer is usually no. Actually, we really just want to be able to get the numbers and do stuff with it.
That sounds like a very modern approach towards having a flexible reporting framework rather than having some rigid reports that everybody should use. I can definitely see that the industry is seeking out for that. By coming from reporting or moving away from reporting and coming to automation, we have talked about it at the very beginning and understood that your solution is quite performant to handle a lot of short-term or spot trades within a short time, also providing a real-time positioning management. But in that context of automation, and maybe that's not a target for your customers, but maybe it is, talking about automated trading and algo trading, I can definitely see this is on the rise across the whole industry. And that brings, of course, challenges. Talking about developing strategies for multiple end users brings me to the challenge of, or the question, does your system provide a sort of a development framework so that multiple users can work at the same time in a structured environment to code strategies?
Yeah, so specifically, we don't have anything within the platform around algo trading, but we do have, as I say, the API, so that basically allows you access straight into the system to be able to get the information in and out as you need. Kind of very similar to the to one of the previous answers. We provide sample code for people to be able to write these things themselves. I guess one of the things about algo trading is that typically people tend to want to have those as proprietary bits of IP anyway. So I think everybody has their own idea of what algo trades would work for them, and would that necessarily work for anybody else? So I think the short answer is again, no, we don't provide anything within the platform. Again, I think our target audience is probably not quite at the level where you're going to be looking at that, but that's today. Maybe in a few years' time, it'll be that you have to do it because you don't really have much choice. And then we would then lean on the kind of scalability and performance type capabilities that we have to kind of say, look, if you're ramping up your trading and you're doing 10 times the volumes you're doing now, then we can cope with that. So
well, that's interesting. We've gone through, I think, a pretty good journey through your solution. Before we wrap and move to the speed round here, anything that I didn't ask or Martin didn't ask that you feel proud of, or that we missed, or that you want the audience to hear about your solution before we move on? Because I don't know your solution well enough to know what I missed, but is there any segment that we should have covered in your opinion?
I think all I would say is that really we are trying to solve some of those long-standing problems within ETRM. So we kind of see ourselves as being disruptive in that regard. We see ourselves as being very innovative, and I think that the world is in a position now where it's slowly going to kind of ebb away from the kind of monolith model, and maybe move towards a little bit more of a kind of dynamic model, if you like, a little bit more of a definitely cloud, definitely software as a service, and it's really interesting to be kind of one of the early adopters in that space. So it's exciting. I think, as I say, as a technologist, it's really great to be working with these sort of cutting edge technologies and implementing them, allowing people to get the use of them. But yes, exciting times.
Well, thank you for sharing the solution. We're going to move into the next segment of the program here. And what we have here is we have 10 questions. We ask each ETRM vendor that we bring on the program the same 10 questions. Martin and I are going to alternate back and forth. I'm going to start with the first question. I'll ask you a question and he'll ask a question. If you can offer a concise answer, that's good. If we want some clarity, one of us will jump in and ask for a little bit of clarity. So don't think that you misspoke. We might just want to get a little bit more clarity if we do ask a follow-up. But without much further ado, we'll move to the speed round here, as I call it. And I'll ask you the first question. So in your opinion, will the market or vendors for ETRM solutions shrink or expand in the future?
I think that they will expand. I think the whole market for trading will expand. You see individuals trading now. There's a lot more individuals trading because platforms are opening up. Platforms like Robinhood, people love trading crypto. So I don't see any of this contracting.
So how many deals per minute must a modern ETRM or CTRM system today be capable to import?
Deals per minute, did you say?
Yeah, deals per minute.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you could do 10 a second. So you should be able to do. Run the numbers. 600 a minute, easily.
Okay.
Cool. So what commodity types and energy types are you offering, and which ones do you consider your biggest strength?
So the platform is cross commodity. So we take the kind of key trading components across all commodity spaces. Our background as individuals are in European power and gas, so that's where we focus. But if you want to trade something a bit different, then we actually think we have about 106 separate commodities that you can pick off. But we don't have a huge amount of ecosystem around some of the more exotic things. So European power and gas for the moment, and then beyond that, almost anything.
Interesting. So we have probably covered that next question already, but for comparison reason, I'm anyway asking it. So do you offer a real-time position management module, and how many trades can you process with this real-time position module?
Yeah. So we have a few mechanisms that basically trigger when you put a trade in, and one of those is something that will update we class them as cube metrics, but for your question, you could look at it as portfolio, and it triggers straight away, and it takes a fraction of a second to recalculate it. We put a lot of work into just recalculating the section of the portfolio that's changed, rather than kind of like aggregating everything each time, and it's lightning fast.
Cool. Next question. So do you have an automated workflow for straight-through processing?
Yes, we do. We have connectivity from exchanges using our exchange partner, and we have connectivity through to high-quality back office solutions. So again, we would encourage people to automate as much as they can. So yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Talking about pricing a bit, can your solution price Asian options?
No, I'm pretty sure we can't. We're probably a little way behind the curve on that.
Okay.
Sadly. But we'll put it on the list of things to do now you've mentioned it.
Great.
All right. So are you offering a full integration and implementation service for your ETRM solution?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can get set up and running just by clicking the link on our website. So if you don't actually want to do any implementation, you don't have to. It's all done by us, and yeah, we'll support you along the way. If you want to use some consultants, that's fine. Nothing wrong with that at all. But yeah, it's designed to be super quick and super easy.
Very convenient. In your opinion, what is the biggest threat for third-party ETRM vendors and solutions?
When you say third party, what do you mean? Like
vendors like you providing a solution to customers?
Well, there isn't a huge amount that's a threat to us, because we're the small guys chewing at the heels of the bigger guys. But I guess the bigger guys might look to us as a bit of a threat at some point. But that doesn't it certainly doesn't worry me too much.
Okay. So how does your licensing model work, and is it going to change in the future?
Yeah, so licensing is really easy. We just charge a fixed per user per month per environment cost, and we don't have a lengthy contract tie-in, so you can use it for a month and then kind of say, no, that's enough, thank you. We also provide a free trial as well, so you can get on board, use it for a bit, check it all does what we say it does, and then really you just roll into sort of standard monthly fees. Yeah.
So
Is it going to change? The answer to that is no. I don't think so. I think we're committed to that model.
So is your pricing model no volumes, or I mean, you said you're targeting smaller enterprises. So at certain volumes, there's no breaks, or are there breaks at certain price points or anything like that? It's always a flat rate, no matter how many transactions.
No matter how many transactions. So it's just a per user. Per user, per environment, per month fee. So, yeah, I mean, if somebody comes along and wants like 1 million like trades or something with one user, that might raise a question mark. But I think we kind of see ourselves a little bit like a classic SaaS. If you use Microsoft, if you use Office 365, they don't bill you by the number of emails you send. So, we're trying to stick very much to that very pure model of software as a service.
Thank you.
Cool. So, last question, Simon. We have talked about it, at least parts of that question. Are you offering an API, and what is the technology behind it?
Yep, so we do offer an API. So the API covers the entirety of the platform. From a user perspective, it's a REST API. So you have to you basically have to. It's all JSON ultimately, and the technology behind it. The entire platform is written in Microsoft C#.net.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
So we've gotten through the speed round. Those are the same questions the other vendors will answer as well, so we'll get there. Martin, before we kind of wrap up this episode, any final thoughts or questions that come to your mind?
Not for now. Very satisfied. Thank you, Simon.
So Simon, I do have one that I don't think we covered in the flow of the interview. What's your support model like?
So yeah, the support model is very straightforward. So I mentioned the per user per month fee. That includes support as well. So basically, within that fee, you can raise any questions, and my support team will take a look at it. You get free upgrades as well, so that's included. So again, just trying to make it as simple as possible for organizations to be able to budget. If you want something that goes beyond, something's not working in the system, if you want something that is like an enhancement or some professional services, yeah, for sure we'll charge for that. But normally it's all kind of bundled into the single fee. Just make it real straightforward.
Well, thank you. I just felt that we missed that one area, and I wanted to cover that. But thank you for bringing that in. I want to thank you for being on our program. I think our audience is going to appreciate the clarity and understanding of where you are in the market. I will give you one final thought before I close up the episode. If you want to share anything last, please do.
Yeah, I just appreciate the opportunity to come on here, Chris and Martin. I have enjoyed listening to your podcasts. Now I knew I was coming on, so I just say that they're very insightful, and I hope people enjoyed the show today.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest and sharing with us. For the Insider's Guide to Energy audience, the educational miniseries and ETRM will all come out at once. So if you're just listening to this, don't forget to listen to all the episodes that are out. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.